weddings are, like you said, they're just very emotional. It's a lot of pressure spent on making sure this one day is perfect. Um, and so most of the times, honestly, wedding cakes are some of the easier cakes that I do. They don't take as much time as like your custom cakes do. It's not as many elements that you have to make. Um, so the actual cake isn't that hard, but it's the pressure of like making sure it is perfect and like nothing can go wrong, which 9 times out of 10 nothing does go wrong, but it's like just kind of like the anxiety of like, oh my goodness, like if anything goes wrong, I'm gonna ruin their wedding day.
All right, guys, welcome to the Lazy Millennial Lounge. I want to introduce you to our guest today, Shellane Brown of Apple Butter Bakery. Thank you for being here, Shellane.
Thanks for having me.
So, I like to start by getting some background context about my guest. So, can you let me know around the time that you graduated from high school what you thought you were going to be doing with your life and how that compares to what you are actually doing with your life today?
So it's actually quite similar. So when I was a senior in high school trying to figure out college majors, I remember seeing a commercial for maybe Le Cordon Bleu, some pastry program. And I was like, oh, that's it. That is definitely it. And so I proposed that to my parents, and they're like, we would rather you go to like a liberal arts college and get a degree there first. And then if you still want to do this, then you can go on to culinary school. And so I kind of went back to the drawing board and looked at the list of majors. And at the time, I was at DeKalb School of the Arts, and I
Mhm.
was majoring in music. And so I saw Georgia State had a really good music program, and they had a major for music management. And so I was like, oh, that would be great. So I went to Georgia State School of Music and graduated with a bachelor's in music management and a concentration in saxophone performance, which I no longer use. I have not played my saxophone since 2009 when I graduated. But actually, about midway through getting that degree, I kind of knew that this wasn't really it for me. I had to do a lot of internships for that program. And so I'm working at these, labels and like just offices. I'm like, the culture here is just not for me personally. So I started looking at different things to kind of focus my time on. And I walked into a Michael's with my mom, and I saw the poster for cake decorating specifically. So before I wanted to be a pastry chef, and then I saw the poster for learning how to do cake decorating. And at the time, like my mom and I had a routine on weekends to watch Ace of Cakes and all the Food Network shows. And I was like, oh,
Mhm.
that's cool. Like, let me learn how to do that. And so I started teaching after I finished that course. Started teaching for the last 2 years of college. And I kind of knew, like, instead of music, I was going to pursue cake decorating in some form.
You were
So,
teaching at the Michaels. You were teaching the cake decorating class at Michaels.
so I took the classes at the Michaels, but they were
Hmm.
hiring for the same teacher of the same courses at Hobby Lobby. So
Okay. Okay.
I started teaching at the Hobby Lobby in Stone Mountain. So I was doing that for about 2 years.
I think this is a record. So your episode is probably going to be like number 99 or 100. And in all 100 episodes, I don't think anyone has ever, literally ever, said that what they thought they were going to be doing was at all related to what they are actually doing. So it took 100 episodes to find one, but we found one. That's awesome. Okay, so you took the cake decorating class at Michael's, you began teaching it at Hobby Lobby, and that's what kind of opened your eyes to this actually being a career for you.
So I pretty much, once I was teaching it in that world, of course, I was trying to find more things to teach my students. And so just, I don't know, Google and a lot of like cake forums and YouTube just kind of opened my world up into like what you can do with cake.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just remember, I mean, I was so young. I was staying up until like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, like just finding out how to do all these techniques. And I became obsessed. Like I can't even tell you how many hours I spent researching these things because, the classes that I took only taught you so much. It's like the
Mm-hmm.
basics. It's just kind of introducing you to the world of cake decorating, but there's a broad range of things after, like beyond that.
Right.
And so a lot of my training honestly came from watching YouTube videos. And so a lot of people ask me like, hey, like I want to learn cake decorating. I'm like, honestly, you get the most value in like just time management and just watching other people do it on YouTube. There's so many free resources out there. And so that's what I utilize to know or to learn everything that I know now. And a lot of practice, obviously. You have to
Yeah.
have hands-on practice.
I'm
And
like,
so
I can try to make one of your cakes, but it ain't. I can watch YouTube for however long, but it's not gonna look like or taste like your cake. Um, what besides, like, I assume design skills, of course, is something that you have to know and practice and get better at. But when you were first starting out, maybe when you were like taking that class at Michael's or doing the research on YouTube, what were some of the other like skills that you had to develop in order to like do cake decorating really well?
when I was still in high school, we had the options of choosing different minors, right? So, like one year, my minor was dance, the other year was media production, and one year it was art. And so I took a formal art class that entire year, and I learned a ton about shading and proportions and all these different materials. So we worked with clay and charcoal and colors and all these different things. And so that kind of gave me a good foundation to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always a doodler all throughout school. Like instead of taking notes, I would doodle in my notebook. So that was kind of just what I like to do. Um, and so, of course, drawing helps. Any kind of art, painting, sketching, molding, clay work, pottery, anything like that is helpful. And so I would even Google clay sculptors to
Mm-hmm.
try to find how they work with clay and how do they do like addition work or do they like remove product to get like the best kind of form. So just learning a lot from different mediums. So watercolor, I don't do a lot of watercolor work, but there's a trend of watercolor cakes. So instead of watching cake people do watercolor cakes, I'd watch actually watercolor people do watercolor techniques.
Smart. That's so smart.
Yeah. So the world of cake again is it's very broad and there's a lot of different techniques um, to do different types of cakes. Decorating a lot of times is making a cake look like not a cake. And so like if I'm making a car, I need to know like a lot of scaling. So I have to be able to do algebra, which is a big part of making sure everything's to scale. And like substituting for X, like you have to find out like if it's this long, how wide does it have to be? Like what's the slope of the windshield?
Mm-hmm.
So in school, I never thought like math would really service me well, but it actually does. It really helps in making realistic cakes. Um, and then like just playing around in the kitchen, there's a lot of, so everything is cakes, it has to be edible or it has to be removed. So playing around with different ingredients to try to get a different technique, a different um, texture. So a lot of it is just playing around. So I kind of get paid to play in people's food. That
That
sounds
sounds
disgusting,
fun.
but it
Sounds
is
like a
a lot of fun.
grand career. I love it.
I love it too. Yeah, I'm
So
very fortunate.
where does the taste aspect come in? Like, so we're talking about cake decorating. Were you learning how to like be a good baker at the same time? Does my question even make sense? Like, because I don't know anything about cake decorating or baking, but I like to look at them but I don't know what they taste like. So I don't know, like, I also don't like cake. Like, I'm not a cake person. When I come to apple butter, I get your red velvet brownies. That's my
Oh,
jam. But so I'm like, well, does it taste like cake? Or so how does that work? Please educate me and us.
That's great because a lot of people refer to me as a baker. I actually bake nothing. I
Okay.
don't bake a single thing. My mom and my sister are the bakers of apple butter.
Okay.
Uh, so they come in like early and they make all the cakes and the icings and the syrups. And then I come in afterwards because I like to sleep in. I come in afterwards. And once it's already baked and cooled, then I get started on decorating them.
Mm.
So I consider myself a cake decorator.
Okay.
A lot of people in my field consider themselves like cake artists or sugar artists, because they focus mainly on the decoration part, even if they do bake as well. And so, of course, I can bake. It's just not something that I love doing. I don't have a passion for the baking. That's more, like I said, my sister, and my mom. So my mom taught both of us how to bake, but my sister found a love for baking, and I found a love for decorating.
Well, that's beautiful that all of your skills come together. Before the pandemic, I used to come to Apple Butter every Friday because my son at his old school, they used to have Cookie Friday and they would leave cookies out for them. But then we changed his school and they didn't do that anymore. But I was like, well, we still have to get him a cookie on Friday. So because his school is near Apple Butter, I would go to Apple Butter and get his cookie and my brownie and just hang out there until it was time to pick him up from school. So I would always see your mom, and I didn't realize she was your sister at the time, but I guess your sister will be there too. They're all super nice.
Oh, I love that story.
Okay, so you were teaching at Hobby Lobby, and then what happened in between Hobby Lobby and opening your own shop?
Yeah, so I was teaching at Hobby Lobby, mainly through the last couple years of school. And then when I graduated, it was 2009. It was a recession. Had a very hard time finding a job, even in music and like what I had planned to have a career in, but kind of knew already that's not really what I was going to be doing long term. But I still tried to find a job in the music industry after graduation. Couldn't find it. Couldn't even find a regular job for, a college graduate, you would assume.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up working retail, just something to do after graduation. And after 3 months, I was like, nope, this can't continue. I did not go
What
through
type of
4 years.
retail were you in?
I was working at I don't want to say the actual
The
name,
name, yeah.
but yeah, like
Clothing
it was a
restaurant.
clothing. It
Clothing.
was
Okay.
like at a mall, at a very busy, high trafficked mall. And yeah, it was a department store. I couldn't handle it. It just was not for me. And so I came home one day, I think it was after Black Friday. And
Oof.
you know how the
You
department
ain't
store,
even gotta you ain't even gotta go there.
I came home and I said, Ma, so y'all want to start a bakery or what? At the
This ain't
time,
it.
I can't do this. So at the time, I was just baking for, not baking, but the three of us were making cakes for friends and family. Didn't quite make it a business yet until we decided, like, let's make this a business and let's be official. Because at the time there was no cottage law. So the cottage law allows people to bake out of their home. So you don't have to have like a brick and mortar store. Back then, that wasn't a thing. So we had to find a commercial kitchen to get up and running. And so I went on Craigslist and I searched commercial kitchen or shared kitchen. And I found one in Atlanta. And we were there for about a year and a half. And it was great. Our business skyrocketed. People were finding out about us. We got in touch with a lot of event planners and kind of got our foot in the door in the industry. Fast forward a year and a half, we had all these other um, food business owners kind of come and grow and go. And we're still here, but I was comfortable. That was the thing. I was comfortable. We were making enough money for me to be able to do this full time. And I was like, okay, this could be it. But I kind of knew the Lord was telling me, like, hey, this is not it for you. But I was hesitant to making the next step of finding our own place.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Beltline came right next door,
Mm-hmm.
and the landlord was like, oh, this is your 30-day notice that your rent is, I think, going up by 50%, and he wanted half of our cupcake sales.
Half?
Half of the sale, not even the profit, half of the sale. So all the costs would be on us. And yeah. So it took us maybe 20 minutes to discuss it, and then we sent him an email back saying, okay, this is our 30 days notice that we're leaving. And so we have 30 days to find another, because we still had orders, like we couldn't just stop. And so we were looking for another place to go, and we applied for SBA loans to get kind of like the initial funds to open up our own store. SBA did not come through. They were like, nah. And so we had the hard decision to close. And one of the reasons that we did, I had an opportunity in San Francisco. So I ended up moving to San Francisco for about a year to work under two different pastry chefs at two different bakeries. One was like a high-end wedding cake studio, and the other one was a very high-trafficked bakery in like a cute little community.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I learned pretty much everything I do now, because previously it was just like I'm learning off of YouTube. I don't really know what I'm doing, but I'm trying to make pretty cakes. But there I actually learned more technique and like systems and like how to run an actual bakery,
Yeah.
not just how to make cakes.
How did
So
you connect with those people?
I emailed them. So I actually had a friend that was moving out there. And so I went to visit, and I was like, oh, I love this place. Like I kind of knew immediately after the plane landed, like, I'm supposed to be here. I don't know why, but I'm supposed to be here. And so the more I visited all the cafes and the bakery, the food is just, honestly, the food is just better out there. Like everything is so fresh and like so well done. And Atlanta's grown a lot in the food scene since then. This was 2011. So our food scene is much better now than then. So yeah, I decided to just apply to a couple bakeries, and both bakeries hired me. So I was like, oh, well, this is a great learning experience. Didn't have immediate plans to come back, but I came back maybe a year later. And at the time, I didn't honestly want to continue doing cakes. I kind of felt like I wanted to transition more into doing ministry. So I was like, oh, well, I think my cake season is done. So I found a position at my church after I moved back to Atlanta. And I was settled. I was fine. I was like, okay, I can do this. And so all the pastors and my coworkers were like, why are you here? Like, you should be doing your cakes, right? And after you hear that repetitively from all the people around you, my husband, by the time, oh, missed that part, 2 weeks after, 2 weeks after, 2 weeks after I moved back, I met my now husband. So again, everything kind of worked out. And he was like, yeah, you should be doing your cakes. My parents, like, hey, are you ready to start your cakes back? And so this was 2012 when I moved back to Atlanta. And then we decided to open 2013. I think the process of finding a building started in 2012, but we were able to finally open December of 2013, about 6 months or 7 months after we got married, which was a lot in a very short time frame. But yeah, it's been a roller coaster ride ever since.
And was that location in your current location? Was that the one that you got then? Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, that's where I'm from Stone Mountain, so that location we were familiar with because it was the original location of Stone Mountain Pizza Cafe, where we used to go almost every Friday for pizza. We had like our booth that we really liked.
And
And
at
so
Hobby Lobby, where you were, was right down
yeah, right around that
the
same
street.
area. Yeah. And so o- originally I did want to reopen in downtown Atlanta because that's where my clientele was previously.
Mhm.
And so I was afraid that they weren't going to follow me to Stone Mountain. So number one, I closed for over a year. It was probably 2 years. I have to do the math. But then to reopen and not be in the same community that we originally opened in, I'm like, I don't know if, this is gonna work. But I kind of did feel like growing up, like in Stone Mountain, we didn't have a lot of nice places. If we wanted something specialized, we had to go to Decatur or
Mhm.
go to Atlanta or go to some other neighboring city. And so I'm like, there's nothing like this in Stone Mountain. So maybe we should like just give it a try and see if people respond to it. Because I know I would have appreciated it, growing up.
So when you reopened, is that when you kind of started to focus more on like wedding cakes, or what did you decide that the bakery was going to specialize in at that time? And is that still the same thing that you kind of specialize in now?
Even when we were downtown in the shared kitchen,
Mhm.
our specialty was still wedding cakes and custom cakes. So when we moved into our own space, we just had to make the decision of if we were just going to do wedding cakes and custom cakes, or if we were also going to do retail. So previously, we weren't really doing retail. If we had extra batter, we might put out cupcakes, but um, the people at the counter would sell them for us. So we didn't actually have to work the counter. We didn't have a lot of experience with working with customers directly. A lot of it was just consultation, and they order, and then we make it and deliver. It's done. So knowing retail is just a whole nother beast, right? You have to have staff there during certain times. You have to train them. Like it's just a lot. But we figured, okay, well, we're in a retail strip, so it wouldn't really make sense to not be open if you're right next to other stores that are open. So a lot of specialty cake bakeries, they might only be open by appointment only,
Mhm.
um, to come in, maybe taste something, order your cake and leave, but you can't go in to pick up a cupcake. So originally that was my plan. But once we found that location that was in, a shopping mall or strip mall, we changed the plan to be open for retail, which has a learning curve to it. Then we had to do more customer service based and not just strictly product or service based.
Mhm.
So, but thankfully, because I worked at like a community bakery in California, I did get some of experience there that I was able to apply here. Um, and so, yeah, our we didn't want to do cupcakes originally. By this time, this was 2013. I thought the wave of cupcakes had kind of died down by this time,
Mhm.
but it's kind of like, give the people what they want. If people want
Yeah,
cupcakes,
for it.
we're gonna make cupcakes. And so yeah, we just decided to open and see what happens. Even we were doing breads and croissants and all these things when we first opened, and it just wasn't resonating with the community, so we stopped.
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how we've developed our menu for the past seven. It's been 7 years. Yeah, past 7 years. Um, just trying something and see if it works, and if it doesn't, we scrap it. And if it sticks, it sticks. Like our best seller is our key lime cupcake. That wasn't originally on the menu. Like my sister was just experimenting and put it out one day,
Mhm.
and then a couple people said, "Oh, it's good." And so we did it as I think it was a Thursday flavor, so just one day a week. But then people were coming in every single day asking for this one cupcake, and now it's our top seller that we sell every day. So we just try to remain flexible. But yeah, wedding cakes and custom cakes was always going to be our thing. The cupcakes and the cookies and the brownies was the addition, that kind of changed our model a little bit.
Got you. And so, in terms of the wedding cakes, is it pretty much like you said, your mom or sister, they bake the cake or like whatever the meat of the cake is, and
Yeah.
then you come in, you sculpt it, do your thing? Does anybody support you in the like decorating portion also, or is that pretty much just you?
So originally it was just me, and then maybe I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, we had a employee named Melissa. So she came on, she was probably 18, 19, right out of high school, didn't really know what she wanted to do. So she decided to wait before she goes to college. Sent me a picture of her pie and said, "Hey, I want to work here. Are you hiring?" So she started off as just like a cashier, and then from there, Erica taught her how to bake. And I was going through decorators like nobody's business. I just couldn't find the right fit. And so, or they would come in young and then, I don't know, decide, hey, I'm going to go off to college in Oregon, and they'd leave. And so I said, well, Melissa, are you interested in learning how to decorate cakes? So she said, well, yes, I am. I taught her. I taught her everything I knew, and she became my right hand man. She became our assistant decorator. And then she eventually grew up. She got married, and now she lives in Arizona with her husband, who's in the military. And so once I knew that they had plans to move, I hired another cake decorator, who her name is Kiera. And so she is our assistant decorator now. And so she does actually the majority of our cakes at this point. I come in mainly to do like the larger cakes, the like huge wedding cakes with all the bells and whistles, the really fancy ones, or all the 3D cakes and the things that take like 10 hours or more. Those are the ones I typically do. While Kiera, she knocks out all of like the classic cakes, the simpler ones, or the buttercream ones that's popular for like birthdays or baby showers or those things. So 9 times out of 10, if you get an apple butter cake, Kiera is probably the one that does them. And then if you get like a huge spinning cake with lights or it looks like a Lamborghini, then those are the ones that I do.
Got you. Okay. So I want to switch gears a little bit. How is it being a service provider working very closely with um, brides and grooms who can be in like, it's kind of a high stakes event, right? Like people get a little high strung, tense sometimes around weddings. So, what are some of the things that you really enjoy about it, and what are some of the things that are more challenging as a cake decorator in that space?
Weddings are, like you said, they're just very emotional. It's a lot of pressure spent on making sure this one day is perfect. Um, and so most of the times, honestly, wedding cakes are some of the easier cakes that I do. They don't take as much time as like your custom cakes do. It's not as many elements that you have to make. So the actual cake isn't that hard, but it's the pressure of like making sure it is perfect and like nothing can go wrong, which 9 times out of 10 nothing does go wrong, but it's like just kind of like the anxiety of like, oh my goodness, like if anything goes wrong, I'm gonna ruin their wedding day type thing. So I would say it's probably um I don't know the word, it's just false fear because nothing really ever goes wrong. Like if you watch these cake shows, you'll see cakes falling over and like they, I don't know, they flip over in delivery. Like that doesn't actually happen in real life. But yeah, so for that reason, weddings aren't honestly my favorite because of the pressure. And it's not even necessarily from the bride and groom. Yes, there's bridezillas and they'll like they have high stake emotions and they'll put that pressure on you. Um, but honestly, a lot of the pressure is for myself.
Mhm.
It comes from myself, so I put it on myself. And then, if you do have a bride who's just, a bridezilla. I don't know another way to call them. That just doesn't help, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the one time, or the instance that makes it worse, is if you have a bride that's not even a bridezilla, but they don't trust you. So if I can tell that a bride or even a wedding planner or event coordinator doesn't believe that I can do something, or they'll, um, I can't even give an example of what they'll say, but you can tell, like, oh, I want it exactly like this picture. Like, I want this to be this way. And like very um, direct and like stripping me away from my creative freedom. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to make this cake look the best way that it can. That kind of like gets to me a little bit. And so now I feel afraid to do my best work. And I'm unable, honestly, to do my best work because you're dictating everything that I do. So
Yeah.
I know how to make the cake look the best. But if you want me to make it exactly like this picture, now I'm unable to do my best work. So that's probably like the worst case scenario. So it's not even attitudes or a quote unquote bridezilla. It's um, not allowing an artist to do what they do. Because if you want me to just copy a picture, that's not my work. Like,
Right.
I wouldn't have made those same decisions. And so just FYI, if you're ordering a cake from a cake decorator, like, or from a bakery, trust that they know how to do their job, and trust that, you're paying them for a service that they're capable of doing. So if you limit their creativity, you're not going to get the best that they can do, what that
Mm-hmm.
they're capable of. So yeah, for that reason, also like, weddings aren't my favorite. But I do them obviously because it's a great celebration. I love being a part of somebody's special day. Like, the idea of, like, man, like, they chose me to do their wedding cake on such a special occasion. But there is a lot of pressure that kind of goes along with that, which kind of makes it, bittersweet, I guess is a good word to say.
When you have the initial conversations with like someone who is requesting a wedding cake or some other custom cake for an event, what are some of the things that you talk about in that initial conversation to like see if they are a good client, or if they're interviewing you, see how you would be as a cake decorator, but also like what their needs are and everything downstream from that conversation? Like, what are some of the things that you talk about initially?
Even in the beginning conversations, I can kind of tell, if, I guess that's my radar. Like, if you trust me as a cake decorator, or if you just want me to copy something. So that's kind of like a red flag. But honestly, like, we don't turn down orders. I wouldn't say, oh, I don't think I'm a right fit for you. Um, I've been doing cakes now for 11 years. So I've kind of been able to navigate all different kinds of customers. Um, but again, I just feel kind of constrained in certain situations, but we'll still do the cake and treat them with utmost respect and customer care as possible. But honestly, we're at a point now that we're doing so many custom cake orders and wedding cake orders, and I'm helping Daniel with Gilly as much as I can, doing all of their desserts and muffins and other catering jobs, that as of maybe 3 years ago, um, my mom transitioned to do the consultations for me. So I'm not even in those initial conversations. But my mom is able to, my mom's been there since day one, since I first picked up a spatula, right? So she knows everything cake related. She goes with me on pretty much every single delivery. So she's the one who kind of gets the feel of the cake and what somebody's looking for. And then I'm able to take all that information, like sit down and sketch something out for them. Um, and of course, reference pictures are great, right? So they'll say, hey, I like this on this cake. I like this on this cake. This is my theme. This is what I'm imagining. And so I take all the information my mom gathered, And so while I'm calm, like while I'm, at peace after all my orders are done, then I can sketch out something and let like all the creative juices flow. Because I found when I was doing the consultations, I kind of felt like forced to create. Like, okay, they want to see what I can come up with right now. But if I'm not in the right mind, I'm going to give out some like, just janky design that I wasn't inspired to make, but we scheduled this for now, so I have to make it now.
Right.
And so I found that this process kind of works best for both myself and then the customer as well, because they're getting something that I'm able to sketch out when I'm at my best. But yeah, getting a lot of information from the customer on like even their relationship and like how they interact with each other, or where they're from, or how they imagine their wedding to be. My mom, takes notes on a lot of different things. So even when I'm reading the form, or we call it a worksheet, I'm able to see like, okay, they want something more fun and quirky. Like they don't want a traditional wedding cake. So I'm going to pull out all the stops for this wedding cake, all the things that I've wanted to do. Like I'm going to put it in this cake and hopefully they like it. And if they don't, like I'll sketch out something else. But yeah, so I hope that answers.
No, it does. It does. And it makes sense from a business perspective and from a creative perspective, because it's like, you're able to use a resource that you have in your mother to kind of make better use of your time when you could be like, I don't know, working on a cake or something. And at the same time, you're able to like produce that creative energy when you are in that flow state, rather than trying to like, all right, at 2:15 on Thursday, I gotta pull out all the stops. Like it's time to go.
Right.
So no, that definitely makes sense. Can you talk to us before we close about the future of apple butter? Like what do you see as the future of your Stone Mountain location? And then is there another location possibly in the works?
We've been at our Stone Mountain location for, again, about 7 years now. And honestly, that location is rough. Like, it is hard because it's just strip malls are, I believe, like in a transition right now in society with Amazon. Even with like the death of the traditional mall, like a lot of people don't go to regular malls anymore. And so even when we signed our lease, we could tell that that strip mall, which I was very familiar with, like we had Old Navy and like all these, high traffic, like very busy stores. By the time we moved in, like those stores were gone. And then even in like the first year or two, there were a lot of other stores closing. Again, it wasn't too far after the recession. Stores like what is that?
Best
Radio Shack. So at one point, our strip mall was maybe at 20% occupancy, and we had no anchor on our side. So even to this day, we have people who come into the store and like, oh wow, there's a bakery here. Like, how long y'all been here? We're like, 7 years. They're like, what? We come in this strip mall all the time. And they're like, oh, but we go to like the Marshalls on that end. We never come down here because there's no anchor on this side. And so, yeah, it's been tough in this particular location. And so we decided about a year and a half ago to open up another one in Fayetteville in a community called Pinewood Forest, which is kind of like your live, work, play. But the creators of Pinewood Forest consider it a live, create, play. So it's like a community for storytellers and creatives. And we feel like just the layout of that community, it's very walkable. So you have a lot of pedestrian traffic. So like bakeries are more of a impulse buy, right? Not a lot of people wake up like, I want a cupcake, right?
Unless it's Cookie Friday at our house, but
Right.
Otherwise.
Right. And like those are traditions and those are great, reasons to stop by a bakery. But like if you don't have like those traditions set up,
Mhm.
then like you might never come into a bakery unless you have a birthday, which is another tradition. So um, with Pinewood Forest being a community where you have, I don't know, 1,200 homes in a walkable distance from this corridor of retail businesses, you have people who are just walking, strolling, just enjoying their day, and then they smell, these chocolate chip cookies baking. They're like, "Oh, let me stop in here and get a cookie," And so that's just a perfect environment for a bakery to thrive. And so we're really excited to open there, and that is planned. COVID kind of affected construction, so we're planning to open that location spring of next year.
Okay.
And then we're still trying to figure out our current situation in Stone Mountain.
Mhm.
Ideally, we'll be able to move to a more visible location because, even though we're right off of 78, if you don't know we're there, you don't know we're there.
The first time I came, I was like, okay, I missed a turn somewhere because it's saying it's right here, but it's nothing right here. Like, no,
Right.
you will really
Yeah.
miss it.
We have a lot of people who are looking for us, like they heard about us from their friend or Instagram, and they put in the GPS, still can't find us. So it's just like a melting pot of a lot of reasons why that location is problematic. And so ideally, yeah, we would love to find a more visible location in Stone Mountain, maybe outside of like the strip mall kind of environment. But then again, we have Amazon that should be opening soon.
They got the logo is up there.
Right, I
They
saw
hired
that.
it's about to open.
That should be what, 1,000 more people in the area. And so we've you know kind of transitioned our model a little bit by adding Gilly Coffee there. So we're trying to kind of bring in that coffee house vibe, so people can come in and get coffee, get a breakfast sandwich, even if they don't want dessert. And so we're hoping that kind of drives in more traffic. um, but again, we're still trying to figure it out, see what the future holds after the Amazon warehouse opens. And if an opportunity for a better location in Stone Mountain opens up, then we're definitely going to look into it.
Awesome. Congratulations on Pinewood Forest. That's so exciting.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah, it sounds like a perfect community for a bakery. They're gonna be all over that.
We hope so.
So if someone is interested in stopping by and picking up a cookie or a cupcake or working with you for a custom cake, how do they reach out to you?
So we have our website is the best way to contact us. And to get more information, our website is applebutterbakery.com. And there you can actually just order cakes. You can order cupcakes. We even have a like order ahead function, so you can get your order same day. And then if you want to pre-order like a birthday cake or something a little more specialized, then we can do that in like 2 to 3 days notice straight from our website. We can even do two-tiered cakes order from our website. And then just to take a look and see what we do, you can follow us on Instagram, which is at Apple Butter Bakery, same as Facebook too. Facebook.com/Apple Butter Bakery. See our work, see what we do, see what we're about. And yeah, we'd love to meet you. We're right off of 78, the West Park Place exit in the Marshalls and Ross Shopping Center. So if you are in the area, feel free to stop on by. We'd love to see you.
Yay! I'm gonna be placing an order soon because my daughter's first birthday is in a couple of weeks, so I'll be getting maybe a cake, but definitely some cupcakes. So
Awesome. Yes, we'd love to do that.
thank you so much, Shellane.
Thank you for having me. This is really fun. I'm glad we had the opportunity.